everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Today's video is another Dollar Tree Easter decor video, and this one is inspired by some pieces that I saw at TJ Maxx over the weekend, mainly that little carrot mobile thing. I saw it at TJ Maxx and it was so cute, but it was way too big. I didn't even check the price because I know it would be pricey, so I decided to recreate it in a much smaller version so that it can actually fit in my home and fit my decor, and I really hope that you enjoy that and the rest of the crafts in this video. And if you do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Once you hit that subscribe button, we instantly become best friends.
Did we just become best friends? Yep!
And don't forget to click that notification bell so you know every time I post a video. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by making my wood sign, and I'm going to use 1 pack of the Tumbling tower games, and on my square tool I'm going to make 4 rows of 8. I'm going to put a book or something heavy behind it so it doesn't move around, and I am going to attach everything using Gorilla wood glue. You can make this as big or as small as you want, and if you want to avoid this entire step, you can go ahead and use some scrap wood or one of those bamboo cutting boards that they have at Dollar Tree. I just couldn't find any. You can also use whatever glue you feel comfortable with. I just would not recommend hot glue. I say this in every video. It creates bulk, and I usually don't wipe down the extra glue because it's a lot easier to sand down later. So once everything is dry, I grabbed my sanding sponge and I just try to remove all of the glue. And you're gonna see how different it is when you remove the glue and when you leave it on. So I'm gonna stain this using dark walnut, but you can also use coffee or water-drowned brown paint. And with a rag, I'm just working that in. Now on the other side of this, I didn't remove the extra glue, but you can still see there's some areas where I didn't remove it in the front. When you try and stain the areas where the glue is still present, it does this really weird thing. It doesn't look good at all. So make sure that you are sanding down your Jenga pieces or anything that you're using wood glue on. So once it's completely dry, I'm going to grab a ruler and I am going to write welcome. If you have a Cricut, you can go ahead and do something with vinyl or a stencil, but I decided to keep this simple for the people that don't have a Cricut. So I just wrote out welcome and I traced over it using an acrylic paint pen. This acrylic paint pen I purchased at Walmart. Make sure that you have a scrap piece of paper or anything that you can press this on because you are going to have to press this frequently to have the ink come out. Unfortunately, these tips are rounded, so you can't get a really thin defined line, but that's okay because I wanted this to look very homemade. To create the stems on the carrots, I used this 97-cent pick from Walmart, and I just removed some of the greenery. It's really easy to cut it down, and I used it as a guide. I placed it where it was going to be, and with my pencil, I traced out where I wanted to place my pieces for my carrot. For the stem, you can paint your stem on, or you can use some of the greenery from Dollar Tree. I just really love the color on the lavender one, so that is why I used it. So this is what the outline looks like, and at the bottom, I wrote "to our patch." I did the same steps as before, but I didn't want to show you everything since it would take forever. And on my phone, I pulled up Fonto and looked up a font so that I can change the font on the word patch. Now I glued down my stem, and this glue gun is atrocious. I know, I couldn't find my new one, and this one was coated with all sorts of greenery from one of my last tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and place my little stem down, and now I'm going to use some split yellow peas and my E6000. I'll leave the link to that below with the little key. I'm also going to use this little crystal picker. This is what I use when I do nails. I've used them as tutorials before, but because it has a wax tip, it makes it really easy to pick up items so you don't have to touch anything, and it just saves a bunch of time. I'll leave the link to that in the description as well, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my E6000 and outline my carrot that I had traced out and start placing my split pea. As you can see, I have the E6000 right on top of my carrot so that whenever it drips out, I can go ahead and use that and not be wasteful. Once I'm done, I let it dry completely, and bam, I had a beautiful homemade sign. For my next tutorial, I'm going to grab the giant bunny from Dollar Tree, and as you can see, it closes pretty tight, so I didn't seal it permanently, but you can using E6000 on the seams. And I'm also going to take 2 of their eggs and make sure to take everything out before spray painting. Now, I'm going to spray paint this the same way I did my scale using Krylon's metallic silver. You can use any silver you want. I just want to get rid of this one since I'm not a Krylon fan, and I let this dry really well. Once it was completely dry, I'm going to do the same thing that I did for my scale, which is go in with some pewter gray, and I'm going to water down the paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of the paint in a little container, and then with a little makeup sponge, I'm going to make sure that that's wet, and I'm going to start pouncing that onto all of my pieces. So once I've killed a lot of the shine from the spray paint using that pewter gray, I'm going to go in with golden sunset and cinnamon. So I'm going to make sure that my sponge is pretty dry, and while it's still wet, I'm going to sprinkle cinnamon on top and rub it in. A lot of people have been asking if this attracts insects or if it comes off when it is dry, and the answer is no, it does not attract insects at all. In fact, it doesn't even smell like cinnamon after the first hour or so, and because you are putting this on wet paint, it's actually sticking to the paint. Or you feel like it's not going to stick, you can always use some brown paint, or you can attach it using some matte Mod Podge. So it's up to you what you want to use. You don't have to use cinnamon at all. You can always just use a dark paint to do the same effect. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on all the places where I feel like rust would look good. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And you can also pick up the cinnamon using your finger or using your brushes. If you have too much in one area, just grab your gray paint and go over it just to kind of mask that color up. It's all gonna look awesome in the end. So I thought this would be really cool to put in a garden. I know people traditionally like to paint things that are rusted, but ever since making that scale, I kind of fell in love with the rusted effect. And when I was done, I think I had some really cool decor pieces. For my favorite tutorial, I'm going to be using this 2-pack of cones from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make sure to cut off the edges. Now for this, you are going to need heavy duty scissors, but it does cut easily. Just be very, very, very careful because all of these pieces do end up really sharp. So around those little notches that you see right there, it is a little bit difficult to cut through, but I'm kind of glad that those notches are there because I end up using them as a guide later on. With a marker, I made 2 lines in between those 2 notches, and that is to cut that down to make space for my bunny since this is a little bunny car. So I'm going to use my scissors and make sure to be very, very careful. Once I've cut that out, I'm going to use this 4-pack of containers from Dollar Tree. This is the 1.5 cup, and I'm going to continue that same line and cut that down to make a little bit more space. Now, because these containers have that little lip, it is going to be a little hard to cut through. You might feel like you're going to break it, but don't worry about it because all of this is going to be covered in rope anyway. And again, with my atrocious hot glue gun, I am going to add hot glue to the sides and press it in. And with some Dollar Tree nautical rope, I'm going to use that to wrap around. However, you can always use whatever rope you find cheapest. I'm going to start to turn this in and create a point before even adding that in, because if you can see, the actual cone isn't pointy at all, and I do really want to create a point so this looks a little bit like a carrot. So after I've created that little piece, I'm going to go ahead and attach that to my cone. Once you've secured it onto the tip, you are going to continue to use hot glue, but at one point you can stop using hot glue and just wrap it around until you get to this part. At this point, you're going to want to start using hot glue again because you are going to need this to stay in place, especially since you're going to cut that middle piece out. So what I'm going to do is continue to wrap and add my hot glue to the sides until I cover everything up. Now at this point, I am going to start putting little marks so that I know which ones I can cut and which ones I can't. So that whole area that's open, I'm going to add little markings to that so I know what to cut down. Before cutting that open, I did cover the rest of my carrot up, and this is going to look a little uneven because my Tupperware is a little smaller, but when I get to the top, I'm actually just going to put the rope on top of itself to create a little hole, and that's to put my greenery in. So now with an X-Acto knife, I'm just going to cut up those areas where I made my markings and push that in. You can put hot glue on the inside, but honestly, you really don't need to because the bunny covers all of that up. Before moving on to the next step, I used a lighter to clean up the rope. Now you can use some scissors, but this is the fastest way. Now you want to just hold up the lighter quickly to where it burns off the little hairs and all of the little scraggly pieces. You don't want to hold it on there too long. You don't want to start a fire. So make sure there's nothing flammable around you and the surface that you're on is not flammable either. Once everything was nice and neat, I grabbed that same tropical sunset that I used for my rusting process, and with a makeup sponge, I sponged it on. You can use a regular brush or a foam brush, but I ran out of my foam brushes, so I went ahead and used my makeup sponge. The wheels, I used these napkin rings from Dollar Tree, and I had sponged on some pewter gray, the same gray I had used earlier, and I'm just going to attach them using hot glue. There's a lot of toys at Dollar Tree that do have wheels now. They do have this kit where you build your own car, so if you want this to look a little bit more realistic, you can use that, but I haven't found them in my stores. So now I'm going to use the rest of that lavender pick, but you can of course use any greenery you want from Dollar Tree. This is the one from Walmart. I trimmed off all of the purple and then I hot glued it into that little opening I created. I also ended up using the Walmart eucalyptus as well to give it some brighter green, but you can use whatever greenery you want. Once I was done with that, I decided to add one of the little Dollar Tree bunnies. This one is my absolute favorite because it's beautiful and gray, and I literally just shoved him in there. He fit perfectly, he was not complaining, and I think that he looks adorable. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and as usual, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you on the next one.